I'm Anil Kumar. Welcome to my series on quadratic functions. Let me thank all the viewers and subscribers for watching my videos and posting excellent suggestions. Now, there was a suggestion regarding a test paper on quadratic functions where we could have few simple word problems and sketching of graphs. Now, here is one which I have selected some questions from previous test papers. I'm calling it Quadratic Functions Quiz 3.1 3.2. It relates to students who are doing MCR3U in Toronto, Canada. So it's Unit 3 for them. Here are 6 questions. Let me first share with you all the 6 questions and then we'll see how to solve them one by one. Question number 1 and 2. Here we are given functions. One, we have given a function in the vertex form. The other function is in the factored form. We need to graph these functions and express them in standard form, right? So that gives you a good practice on converting one type of quadratic equation into the other type. Question number 3, we have given an equation which is for the profit of ice cream company. Minus 75x squared plus 300x minus 200. Now you have to complete the squares to find for what price can you get the maximum profit, right? Question number 4. In this case, we are throwing a ball from 1 meter. We are given the maximum height as 46 meters at 3 seconds. You need to find the equation that will model the parabola. Question number 5. It's a word problem, relatively simple. So here we are given the perimeter of a rectangle. We need to find the dimensions which will enclose the maximum area. Perfect. Question number 6. So in question number 6, we are given the values of x and y and we are saying that this data represents a parabola or a quadratic function. You need to find the value of k. Once you find the value of k, you have to write the equation in vertex form. Perfect. So that gives you fairly wide variety in this particular test. So it might take about half an hour for me to explain and answer all these questions. But I hope by the end you will understand everything which is covered in your first 2 chapters of Unit 3. So let's begin with the very first question. Question number 1. Consider the function f of x equals to minus 0.5 times x plus 3 whole square plus 8. You need to graph this function. Let me rewrite the function as minus 0.5. I prefer to write in fractions half, right? And then we have x plus 3 whole square plus 8. Now when you are given a function in vertex form, it is relatively simpler to sketch fairly accurate graph. Now from this function we get a lot of information about the parabola. Minus indicates that it opens downwards. This is your vertical stretch, or I should say compression by a factor of half. Unit 3 it moves to the left and 8 units it moves up. So in this particular case, what information is given to us? We know the vertex. So the vertex for us is minus 3 and 8. So that is the point from where the parabola turns, and it is in this case a maximum. So this is the first point we should be sketching. Second, we know it opens downwards, and this compression by a factor of half tells you that the steps will be what? Now normally these steps means, I'll show you when I graph, are 1, 3, 5, 7 and so on, right? Multiplied by a, right, which is in this case minus half. So basically the steps when we sketch will be minus half of 3 minus half of 5. So the steps will now be minus half of 3, which is 1.5 you can write. So I'm writing minus 3 by 2, minus 5 by 2, and so on, correct? Now these half-half values might create some difficulty in sketching, but that's how it is. Okay, so it's not a very easy function to sketch to begin with. Okay, now let's see how to sketch it. So here we have a graph. Normally when I work, I don't even take a graph paper, but this time we'll make a rough sketch on a graph paper. It makes things simpler, because we are going to count and then work on it, and that's why I'm using a graph paper, right? Now every unit we'll consider as 1 here. So, and let's first locate the vertex. So -3 means 1, 2, 3. That is -3. We'll go 8 up. So we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that is our vertex. So that becomes the turning point, correct? Now from the vertex, you have to move. Step means if you step on either side, left or right, you have to move half down. So if you move half down, you reach this place, right? And as you know, it is symmetric about its axis. The axis here is x equals to -3. So x equals to -3 is the axis. So it has to be symmetric about it. Now -3/2. Now from here, next step is 1.5 times. So go half down and then 1. So you reach this point. Do you see that? -1.5. Then -2.5. -2.5. Half of 5, correct? 2.5, right? So go down left 1, then you go 1, 2.5. Right? So this is symmetric. So that becomes your y-intercept. You get the idea, right? So that is how we are going to go down. And 7/2 is 3.5. So we'll go half down and then 1, 2, 3. So that becomes your x-intercept, right? So half down and then you get 1, 2, 3. So that becomes your x-intercept. And now you can connect these points to sketch the graph. Does it make sense to you? Perfect. So I hope you are getting the idea of how to sketch a parabola easily with the given. So this part is very important. It has to be a curved path like I'm showing you, right? Do you see that? Then you can draw some arrows here just to extend. Now this is perfect from examination point of view. So it is a rough sketch which is fairly accurate. I should say will give you full marks. So this point is 8 and this point is -3 for us, right? So we have a vertex here which is at -3, 8. So we've done the first part of sketching, correct? So the function f of x should be written on the y-axis, x on the x-axis. This is your 0. That completes our job, and you could write these points. I have given 2, but the scale will be 1 unit each side. Now we need to express this in standard form. How do we do that? Let's do it now. So we have the function f of x as equal to, let's write this as -1/2 only, doesn't matter, x plus 3 whole square plus 8. Now what is x plus 3 whole square? A plus b whole square formula, do you remember? It's important to remember. A plus b whole square is a square plus 2ab plus b square, and that's the formula which you are going to always use to expand, right? Now if it is minus here, you have to just replace that plus with minus, right? That is it. Now let's expand. So what we get here is -1/2, and the square is x square plus 2ab, means 3 times 2 is 6, 6x, right? And then 3 square, which is 9, plus 8. Now we need to open this bracket. So when you open the bracket, you get -1/2 x square, and when you multiply with 6, you get -3x, and here you get minus 4.5, or let me write 9/2 plus 8, right? Now you can factor, take a common decimal, denominator, and then write down your answer. So we get -1/2 x square minus 3x, and in this case, when you are doing this, you can take common denominator of, let me write plus here because we'll use both plus and minus as it is. This is minus. So we have minus 9 here, right? And 2 times 8 is 16. So we'll write plus 16. Does it make sense, right? So or you could have written here 16 over 2 with a plus sign. So that gives you minus half x squared minus 3x. And 16 minus 9 gives you 7, right? So positive 7 over 2. Writing in fractions is not a problem. So you could just leave it like this, or if you want, you could write minus 0.5 x squared minus 3x plus 3.5. So that becomes the standard form for the given equation, right? So from here, you can verify that the y-intercept is 1, 2, 3, 3.5. So this point, the y-intercept is 3.5, and that confirms that our graph is very accurate. Does make sense, right? So this is the y-intercept. Since if I write 0 here, you will note that f of 0 is equals to 3.5. Does it make sense? So that is a good check from the standard equation of your graph. Does make sense to you? Perfect. Let's move on and take the second question now. So in the solution of question number 1, we have understood all these steps to sketch a parabola from the vertex form. Here in question number 2, we'll consider the function f of x equals to, again we have taken half here, half times x minus 6 times x plus 4. We need to sketch this particular graph. Now this time I'm going to sketch the graph without a graph paper, right? So that gives you a variety. So let's look into the function again. It is f of x equal to, let me again write this as half x minus 6 times x plus 4. Now here, what do you notice? We are given two x-intercepts, right? So these are the two x-intercepts. So let's write down the intercepts. So x-intercept x1 is at 6. And the other one, x2, is at minus 4. So these are your two x-intercepts. Second, we understand this is positive, so the parabola opens upwards. Correct? Now it is good practice to find the axis also so that we get where the vertex is. Axis is the average value of the x-intercepts. Correct? So we'll do x1 plus x2 divided by 2, which gives us 6 minus 4 divided by 2, which is 2 divided by 2 or 1. So the axis of symmetry for us is at x equals to 1, right? Okay, so that is the axis, which is x equals to 1, correct? This should help us to sketch the parabola fairly accurately. So let's just do it here. So here we have our graph paper, and what we know is that we have 2 points which are the x-intercepts, and these are at minus 4 and 6. So let's say this is our minus 4, and then let's say this is 6 for us. Is it okay? That is first thing. Second thing what we have figured out is the axis is at 1. So let's say this is 1 for you. So that is the axis for the parabola. So we'll write here x equals to 1. Does it make sense to you? So these are the basic things which you will do from your equation straight away. Now, some important points to calculate is the y-intercept. So put 0 in your equation. We get half of minus 6 times plus 4. So that gives you 12 with a negative sign. Correct? So we do get a value of minus 12 as your y-intercept. Now another very important point for us is to calculate the vertex itself, which is at x equals to 1, right? So let me do this calculation here because I want to use this area to expand it. So what is the value of the function at 1? So if I substitute 1, I get half times 1 minus 6 times 1 plus 4, correct? So that gives me half of 5 times 5, which is negative 5 in this case, times 5 25. So minus 25 by 2 or 12.5, right? So we got a vertex here which is slightly below the y-intercept, correct? So that is all we have got. Now using this information, since it is my rough sketch, I'm going to just connect these points and show that the vertex, the turning point is on the axis. Does it make sense to you, right? And then we are moving the graph so that the x-intercepts are at -4 and 6. Now we are going to label these points, the y-intercept as -12, and this point here, which is the vertex for us, is at 1 and -12.5, correct? So this is fairly accurate graph from examination point of view. Does it make sense to you? Labeling y-intercept, x-intercepts, the vertex and the axis completes the job. Now that ensures full marks. Do you see that? Now let's do the part B, which is to express in standard form. So we have the function f of x as equal to 0.5 times x minus 6 times x plus 4. So first apply the distributive property, right? That would be better. We'll multiply by 0.5 later. So we'll keep 0.5 as such, square brackets. X times x is x squared. Then we have plus 4x minus 6x, and that gives you minus 24, right? So this gives you 0.5 times x squared. Combine the like terms, minus 2x minus 24, right? And now you can open the bracket to get the final standard form, which is half of 2 is 1 and half of 24 is 12. Perfect. So that becomes your equation in standard form, and that is how you're going to do it. So I hope all the steps are absolutely clear. Now let's move on and take word problems. Question number 3. An ice cream company varies the price of its pint containers to maximize profit. The function p of x equals to minus 75x squared. Let me write down here. P of x is minus 75x squared plus 300x minus 200. Models the company's profit in thousands of dollars, where x is the price of pint of ice cream in dollars. At what price will the company receive maximum profits? How much profit will the company earn? That's the question. Now, whenever you want to maximize, what you normally do is completing the squares, right? So when you read this word about maximum profit and all, then we have to complete the squares. So let's see how to do it. So follow the steps. First step is you factor out the leading coefficient, right? So the first step is to factor leading coefficient. From only first two terms, not all the three terms, right? So we'll just write minus 75, not x, right? So, or x squared. So we get here x squared. Since I took minus 75, the sign changes. I have to divide 300 by minus 75. It becomes negative. We get 4, right? And keep this number separate. Now, to complete the squares, we have to do half of the coefficient of x and add and subtract its square, right? So we'll do half of 4, which is 2. So we'll add and subtract 2 square. So when you add and subtract the same thing, it doesn't really change anything, right? So this is important, right? So add and subtract square of half coefficient of x, right? So So in the equation ax squared minus bx, that is the b thing which we are doing, right? Okay. So that is the next step. So that actually helps you to complete the squares. So the